So today's session is about connecting the dots between the environmental and social movements. But before we actually get started on that, we're going to do some breakout rooms. And what the purpose of the breakout room is basically you just in a smaller group than this, discussing things, and you'll be assigned to a room. And when you're in that room, you just use it as an opportunity to get to know each other a little bit, and then look at nominating someone in your group that you want to come back and feedback to the bigger group. And basically you want to say, what is this one thing as a group that you want to get out of the session today, or what you're expecting from the session today, considering the subject of the session is connecting the dots between environmental and social justice struggles. So we're going to start with a breakout room in probably a minute or less now, and you'll be assigned. I don't know, Kulikani, if I've forgotten anything before we starting the breakout rooms.
Yeah, no, before anything. So I think we can go to the breakout rooms.
Okay, awesome. So don't forget to nominate someone that will come and speak to the greater group, get to know each other, introduce yourselves, and the question that you're trying to answer, or the idea that you've got to come back with, is something you're either looking forward to, something that you expect, or if I can just ask you to mute, please, if you haven't. Cool, thank you. But yes, I hope you got a good sense of getting to know everyone. And yeah, who has been nominated? If you can just put a star in the chat if you are one of the people nominated from your group, to just feedback to everyone. Great, thanks Joshua, to feedback what it is that you want to get out of the session. Let's start with Joshua and then Vanessa.
Hello everyone, group 4. And what we really talked about was actually something that was touched upon in our last session, which were people's personal experiences with the effects of the sort of environmental crisis that we're going through. And we wanted to sort of hear what people's different experiences are, not only with the environmental crisis, but also the response to the environmental crisis. Because even in our very short conversation together, we found that there was a lot of differences in how it was happening and being dealt with in the different areas and places that we were situated in. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Joshua. And I see Nokwazi says spot on, so thank you for that. Vanessa.
Hi everyone. So basically what we discussed is what we need to do to fill in the gaps that we've been experiencing with our different organizations, and how we can use like what we've been using in the olden days to try and mitigate all the issues that we face now, like with the climate change, and also how to involve more young people with like in such organizations, and how we can, you know, like in a way, like teach them how to adapt and mitigate to the issues that we're facing currently. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa. Were there any others?
I think Gabriel should be one of our representative. Gabriel, are you here?
Yes, so I had to change devices because my laptop just gave in completely. So I can not give the summary. Can anyone hear me?
Sure. Yeah.
Cool. So we discussed it was very difficult because one of our participants, Sabile, his mic wasn't working, but I believe we figured it out somehow. So the kind of gist that I got to know everyone a lot better, and I believe that everyone in the group got to know each other a lot better. One thing that I think, not one thing, but a big thing that I noticed was that there were quite similar links between everyone, point of views of what we wanted from today's session. I'm not sure if that was the question, but yeah, so we want from, Kulekani wants from the session, for the panelists' perspective of intergenerational justice and equity and equality, want to know what their perspective is, since they have such deep, perhaps different aspects and sides and point of views. Myself and Tobeka, we'd like to better understand how to join the dots between social and environmental injustices, because it's very easy to see something from one point of view, whereas you do need to see that there are links, and how best that you can see the clarity within that link. That's kind of what I understood. So if there's anything I missed from that when I couldn't hear anyone, I do apologize.
Sure, thank you.
I think we had one additional group as well. I know there were 5. Ayaka, I know you had a bit of trouble. One day, did you?
Yeah, we were that one additional group, so we didn't get a chance to nominate anyone to actually represent the team. So if the team will allow, hopefully they will be too mad at me. So basically, at the risk of sounding repetitive, I think we're all on the same, more or less in the same boat, because our team, what we wanted to find out and what our expectation from these sessions is, basically we want to know, first we want to know about each other, right? We want to know what each person is doing in the space, who's who in the zoo, and how we can help each other and actually collaborate and actually move forward with one voice, right? And then secondly, I think one person I had mentioned in the group is that how do we now navigate this space in terms of, now that there's COVID-19 and this is like the new normal, how do we go about seeking the change and going after what it is that we want to see in the world, and with this new normal where we have to practice social distancing and being careful about everyone's health and safety and things like that. So, and also I think one third and final thing that one person mentioned in the group was that they want to know how they can bring about change in their mining community, right? What can they do? Who do they talk to? How do they navigate that space as well? So I think at the base, at the end of it all, everyone wants to know what actions we take and what from the information that we get. So that's pretty much it for my team. I hope I represent my team well. Please don't be mad at me.
No, thank you for that. I think you've made some excellent points, all of you. And I think by the end of the summit, that is absolutely spot on in terms of the goals, in terms of actions, in terms of getting to know each other and moving forward as a united voice. Absolutely. So yeah, we're going to move on to the panels. I think we didn't introduce ourselves. Kulikani, do you want to just introduce yourself really quickly so that everyone knows who you are and who I am before we move on to the panelists? Great.
So I'm Kulegani Makwaza from Durban, and I'm a member of the national team of the SAYCCC, which is the South African Youth Center for Climate Change. I'm also a young representative of the faith-based organizations, which includes Christians, Muslims, Brahma Kumaris, and yeah, I'm just a young representative of the faith-based organizations as well. So good to be here, and I'm happy to be co-facilitating this team. A wonderful one. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Kulikani. Yes, I'm Sarah. I'm Sarah Robin Farrell, and I'm an environmental communicator, and I work with African Climate Alliance. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and co-facilitating as well. I see Michelle in the chat said we also didn't get to nominate anyone, but we had questions around getting clarity about the future, getting motivated to carry on the fight, how to get more involved and becoming more exposed to the different spheres of climate activism. So hopefully that will become more clear. And just as Michelle has done, I encourage you to use the chat to say what you'd like to say. We won't necessarily voice everything, but just say what you need to say there. And then if you agree, again, as Tsepo has done, to use your ++ to show support for what someone has said as well. I'm going to hand over to you, Sinagugu. If you can just reintroduce yourself, because I think not everyone was here for that, and the internet was a little bit bad. I know that you can't necessarily turn on your video, but I will start your presentation for you in the meantime.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. My name is Sinekuku, surname Zukulu. I'm based in the Eastern Cape in the Wild Coast, working in the Mbondoland region. I work within, I'm an environmentalist, but of course, I've been working within the climate change sector, I'd say since 2010, helping communities to adapt to climate change, more on the adaptation side of climate change. So currently, I'm based in the Wild Coast and have been involved for the past 20 years on the Xolobeni struggle against proposed mining or imposed mining by government, helping the communities in their, or supporting them in their struggle to protect their land. Thank you.
Can you see your presentation?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Okay, can I go ahead? Okay,
Cool.
all right. So I'm just going to be sharing with you some ideas in terms of what we are doing within the Wild Coast in terms of helping the communities to move towards the ecologically sustainable livelihoods in terms of adapting within climate change, but also protecting their environment. So for instance, the whole of last year, we're working with a group of close to 100 young people under the National Years for Youth program. And we were working with them in terms of how to look after the land. So amongst the other things which we were running trainings and capacity building on was ecotourism development. And we are running ecotourism development, which is based within the community, owned by the community. In terms of farming, also these young people under Yes for Youth, they were also, each one of them was expected to farm at least a hectare. There are some who farmed more than a hectare, and they were producing the indigenous crops like sweet potatoes and amadumbe, crops which they would be able to improve livelihood, but also to be able to access market if they want to commercialize. So therefore, we had to do an in-depth work in terms of agroecology to say how do they farm but at the same time protecting the land in order to ensure sustainability in terms of the food production. How do we ensure that the farming that they do doesn't harm the environment, the soils, the ecology, the ecosystem, the rivers, the biodiversity? So therefore market access. But also we've done quite in each and every training manual or training module, we would be incorporating the indigenous knowledge, because we found that there's a whole lot of knowledge sitting within the indigenous knowledge systems within the community that the elders have, which the young people are not necessarily aware of. So therefore we would, in each and every module, training, capacity building, incorporate the indigenous knowledge systems, and also augment and protect that particular knowledge for the current and also for future generations. We've also been looking on how do we protect the region where we work, which is the coastal area in Amadiba, in the Mbondoland, in the Wild Coast, is also what we call the Pondoland Center of Endemism, PCE, which is an area which has got about 200 endemic plants. So in terms of environment, in terms of conservation, it's a biodiversity hotspot, which means it's a key or it's a critical ecosystem area that needs to be protected. So helping the young people to understand why their area, when it comes to biodiversity, is so critical. So, but the desired outcome, the end goal of all of we see these young people becoming the land stewards, being becoming the land, the custodians of the land. But also from the other angle, we were doing the advocacy work against the unsustainable development, a development which would destroy the environment, that would render that community or this Punolan community unsustainable, and also that would make them more vulnerable to climate change. Okay, next slide. So, for instance, here amongst the other things which we did was to say, if we are promoting the protection of the environment, one of the challenges which we see in South Africa, and not only in South Africa but globally, is the question of the plastic pollution in our waters, in our rivers, in our dams, in the oceans. So therefore, we were able to introduce the concept of the eco bricks, getting these young people under Yes for You to be, actually we use the eco bricks as an admission to training sessions that you bring. So we'll see how many of these eco bricks one has been able to do. So eco-bricking and cleaning up even our beach, where a coastal area, became a very important exercise. And we have used these eco-bricks to build benches, which within community centers, like in the traditional courts in Gomkulu, in preschools, in churches, where they would be able to be seen by more members of the community. So therefore, picking up litter and raising the awareness even in schools, therefore became a very critical component of what they were doing. So, and we had to show them how to test the durability of those eco bricks. But so this was addressing sustainability in terms of the ecosystem, the ecology. It was also supporting the ecotourism, but also ensuring that the land remains productive, sustainable. Our rivers, our marine life is also clean. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yes, next picture. There's Sarah. Okay, so amongst the other things which we're able to, I told you about farming, but of most important in farming, it has got to be farming which is able to support the livelihood within those communities. There's been also, we're having lots of work where we are able to work with the younger people to showcase the most important crops, like the amaranth. In the previous picture you saw the amaranth collecting the leaves. In terms of the permaculture and agroecology, looking at the organic farming versus chemical farming, GMOs versus the indigenous seeds, organic pest control versus poison-based pest control, looking at the market access for the surplus produce. Next slide, please. Okay, so and then looking at the permaculture techniques, yes, next. Yes, helping them to say, how do you actually build or improve the soil? Also here, what you see here is the underground maize storage facilities that were used previously is selling. These maize pits, showing them, and also trying to bring about, because the maize which was stored there, talking about the nutrition. Again, that's one example of the indigenous knowledge which we brought in because of the nutritional values of the indigenous storages, which used to be very common there. Next one, please. We also trying to build the pack houses per village, where the communities would converge. Yes, the next picture. Okay, so this is showing you, so the young people as well, in terms of using the crawl manure. The lady was taking the crawl manure out. This is the produce now. This is Nosi Potlamini, the produce which has come from her sweet potato field. She's now harvesting this for the market in the city. All the sweet potato gets sent on a weekly basis to the Durban market. And that community makes about 3.5 million during the season of 6 to 8 months out of selling sweet potatoes and matumbes to Durban. Next, please. The next slide, please. Okay, we also look in terms of we talking about a very beautiful land. So in terms of ecotourism, so the land we're talking about, the indigenous, the endemic plants there. So we organize hikes and with the ecotourism developing the ecotourism infrastructure that we use accommodation, training young people on guiding. We've got a number of accommodation facilities along the Peculiar coastline from Sikiri, Kwanyana, Tendo stays to Kobodweni, where we are developing. We have these grand plans in terms of the conservation as well, where that shows you the Tolobeni coastline, what you see there. So where we work to try and help the communities to develop their tourism infrastructure, but also to conserve and to protect certain areas within those communities. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of these are all the plans. Okay, so we also been looking at how do we revive the traditional. So again, in indigenous knowledge systems, how do we revive the crafting skills, bringing in the elderly people to teach the young people on how. So doing research and documenting research, interviewing the elderly people. So we have some amazing codes. You know that we always get the quotations from Mandela, from Gandhi and all of that. But we're trying to collect amazing quotations from our local people, the things which they say about the importance of the land, which does speak to the adaptation to climate change, to the value of the land, to sustainability. Next one. Okay, we're coming to an end now. Next slide. I'm not going to bother to give you the details of what that quotation. Okay, yeah. So that's kind of that shows you the landscape. That shows you the landscape in terms of what. So you will see from what I've mentioned. If you're looking at through all of these slides and what I've taken you through within these past few minutes, is in terms of we are looking at the value, in other words, to be able to join the dots between social justice, climate change, adaptation, but also sustainability, that the community needs to know exactly in terms of what matters to them, the important things, what sort of future do they want. And then once you know you have got a common vision within the community, then it becomes very easy to be able to organize your interventions in terms of, but it's very important to have the consensus within the community, what the majority of people deem important in their lives. Thank you very much. And goes.
Thank you so much, Sinigogo. That was amazing. And I see we've got aggressively wholesome clapping, lots of pluses. So I think the audience definitely agrees that it was a very informative presentation. Before we go on to any questions, maybe we can move straight to Ayaka. And you can introduce yourself very briefly again and I know you're not doing a presentation, but just speak through, you know, what you've just heard and your take on connecting the dots between social and environmental justice.
My name is Ayakamili Tafa, and I'm a climate justice activist. I became a climate justice activist about 2 years ago when my family got severely affected by the drought that hit the Western Cape, as I keep saying over and over again. But even before that, I always had like a connection to the environment, and I knew that I had to pursue something in the environment. So definitely when you learn about climate change, there's so much information that you learn that just it's mind-boggling, I'd say. So you get a little bit of anxiety, as they mentioned in the previous meeting. I remember someone mentioning of the anxiety that you get from all the information that you get from climate change. So in order for me to actually overcome that anxiety, and you could say climate depression, I joined Project 90 by 2030, which is an environmental organization that strives for to lower the carbon emissions by 2030, as well as the African Climate Alliance. And I feel like that definitely helped me as a person to understand climate change more, and also for me to be more involved in climate change. And through that, it elevated my voice in the sense that I was able to join some conferences, some in Joburg. I even got the chance to actually attend the World Economic Forum to urge world leaders to actually take care of the environment, or actually understand that third world countries are struggling in terms of mitigation and adaptation to climate change, whereas they aren't really the cause of climate change. So I definitely say so far being a climate activist has been overwhelming, but not in a bad way. It's been overwhelming in the sense that you finally get to meet people that have common interest to what you're actually interested in. You find people that understand you and care about the same things as you, and that definitely builds your confidence as a person. It also builds your knowledge on information that you required to learn as a climate activist. So I definitely say that the knowledge that I've gained from being a climate activist is amazing. And also, even climate change, I have a lot of socioeconomic issues that I'm passionate about. And I'd say one other one that I'm really passionate about is gender-based violence, stopping gender-based violence. And I feel like the reason why people still aren't really able to stop the gender-based violence, especially here in South Africa, is because we're not really targeting the root. I feel like we're kind of fighting it on the surface. We need to go deeper. We have to learn that this person that's abusing women right now, they have a father, they have a mother. Those people also have mothers and fathers, and we have to target the root in order for us to actually break the cycle, because right now it's not happening. We're seeing a resurface of more cases of gender-based violence, and they're just being more cruel and more harsh on women. And I feel like we really have to pay attention to that as well as the whole aspect. So definitely, giving off my opinion on what was recently said by my fellow panelists on really talking about the linking of other socioeconomic issues, I'd say that I feel like there's still a huge demographic of people that don't even know what climate change is, because I feel like they have a wall in front of them, and that wall might be poverty, that wall might be xenophobia, that wall might be them not knowing what to do, or them being stuck somewhere that they can't really move. So I feel like in order for us to actually interlink these issues that are climate change and other socioeconomic issues, we have to really find a common root. You get me? In a sense that we see all of these issues and they have different roots. Some roots might be racism. Sometimes the root might be capitalism. Sometimes the root might be patriarchy, so on and so forth. But I feel like, and a lot of people have been saying this opinion with me as well, is that in order for these movements to be successful or be successful individually, we have to understand that there's a system in this whole thing that we're really not looking at, or people might be looking at, but they really aren't challenging because it's so hard to challenge the system. And that system is the capitalism that we're facing right now. And I feel like in order for us as movements, as these individual movements, to come together and fight for justice, we don't necessarily have to have different opinions or actually merge all of our fights together, because if we merge maybe climate change and then we merge gender-based violence, if we merge the Black Lives Matter movement with all of these, they might not get the attention that they deserve individually, or they might not get the attention or the recognition they deserve individually. So I feel like instead of us merging all of these together, we could essentially maybe support one another. for example, maybe there's a Black Lives Matter protest happening, we could, like, as other movements as well, support that movement and make sure that we amplify their voice, so that when it's our turn to protest, and make sure that our voices are heard, that they can support us as well. And that will actually make sure that each individual movement has its importance out there, and it gets the time that it deserves. So I definitely agree with solidarity. Yes, we should do that, so that we can build a greater movement. But I feel like we should also be anti-capitalism, because capitalism is a system that has not been working for us. It makes the poorer poor, and it also makes the richer richer. So I definitely feel like we have to target that system, because it might be a root that is there, just underlying all of the issues that we've shown. That's underlying all the issues that we are facing, and also all the injustices that we are facing, because people that are essentially the cause of climate change, or what's really causing the climate change, are people that are sitting comfortably with no problems in their homes. They're billionaires, and they're still resistant to actually do something about it. And people that are racist, people that are actually just against the Black Lives Matter movement, those are people that are privileged. Those are people that do not know the struggles of Black people. So I definitely feel like if we target the root, it might not be capitalism alone, but capitalism, I feel like, is a big part when it comes to actually trying to change all of everything that's happening around us. So I definitely, in my opinion, I feel like in order for us to interlink these movements and become one bigger, greater movement, we have to start with awareness. And then by making people aware of the root of the problem, we can then target the problems individually. And that way we can actually make sure that everyone is getting equality, and everyone is actually feeling that what I'm fighting for is actually given attention to. So yeah, I feel like that's my opinion on how we can link the systems. It will be hard for us to interlink these environmental movements if we do not understand the root of these movements. And by us understanding the root of these movements and understanding the power that we have as civil society, as the working class, as unemployed people, we can then disrupt the system and actually change capitalism and go to a better system. It might be socialism. Some also agreeing that there might be pros and cons to each system, but it definitely will work better for us rather than capitalism is working right now. And I feel like we will go to a place where we can actually say that, yes, we are finally happy, or we finally got the equality that we deserve as people. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much, Ayaka. That was very powerful, very motivating, and also provoking. I can see that many people are in agreement of that, and many people are giving very positive reaction to that. Thank you so much, and thank you so much to the previous speaker. I'm sorry, Kukuletu. Thank you so much to him. Sinekoku, sorry. Thank you so much to Sinekoku. Let us take questions now. Quick questions and sharp questions. I think we will identify people who have raised their hands, but then you can also ask your question in the chat box. So let us take questions.
Vanessa, I believe you had a question, if you want to start.
Okay. So she's off the course.
No problem. Then Tobeka.
So this question is directed to Sine Gugu. But firstly, before I can ask the question, I'd like to commend both our speakers. Thank you for the brilliant points that you guys made and for the brilliant work that you guys are actually doing in your communities. And Sine Gugu, I'd like to really commend you guys for the use of Indigenous knowledge to promote sustainability. It's something that we barely see nowadays, especially with Indigenous knowledge systems. Their solutions are very useful, and they've been useful from back in the days, but now it's like things have changed, and many of us are converting from the use of Indigenous knowledge. So I commend you guys for that. So my question is, from raising the awareness in schools, are there like any ways in which students are incorporated into the activities that you guys do? Like, do you have like a specific range of who do you allow to work with you guys, or do you also open space or give space for young people that are in high schools, so to expose them to sustainability, to expose them to climate advocacy, to expose them to climate justice and all those kinds of things? Thank you.
Thank you, Tobega. Do we have another one? Okay, I think Sinekuku can respond to that one, and we will take another one when he finishes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tobega, for your question. I think the background which I might not have shared is that, like I mentioned, working within Kulobeni. Kulobeni, the struggle of 20 years has been by the community on how do they protect their land, because the government is imposing a mine which is to be run by an Australian company. But the community is saying no, because their land is productive. They'd like to use their land to continue to farm. Now, remember in my closing, I said it's very critical or very important that before you come with the interventions, understand the issues and the struggles and all of that within that community. So my sharing today was coming in terms of, given what we are doing, the struggle against the imposed mining there, which the community does not want, but the government keeps on pushing for the last 20 years, which is an ongoing struggle. So what do we do, therefore, in order, given the space of climate change, what do we do? So I shared you some of the activities which we are doing. Yes, we are working a lot. For instance, the Yes for Youth I was talking about were between the ages of 18 and 28. So that was the young people we worked with. We, for instance, even this past weekend on Sunday, we had the hike where we had young people as young as 9 years, 10 years who joined us, where we were celebrating the Environment Month, but also the Youth Month, being June. So trying to bring the awareness about the significance. So our focus has been to say, if people are saying no to mining, they're saying yes to life. What does that look like? So how do these young people become custodians of their land? In other words, the bigger picture, thinking globally that we are facing the climate change, but what are the real issues? Acting locally, what are the major issues that the young people, given the struggle that they are facing against the extractive industry that wants to trash their land? So how do we help the young people understand the significance of the land? How do we bring in the elderly people? So in other words, the struggle which we are pushing is focusing mainly on adaptation. Because if, for instance, you're looking at a broader picture, the mining, when it comes, is going to pollute the waters. Actually, the amount of water that is needed by that mine is 20 times more than the water we have in our rivers. So, and they say when all the waters in the rivers is gone, then they will use the seawater in their in their tailing dams. So bringing those issues in terms of the social justice, bringing in terms of the Section 24 of the Constitution, the right to a clean environment, and helping people understand those issues. So, in other words, our struggle is geared towards understanding the rights, for people to understand what their rights are in terms of the Constitution, in terms of the indigenous customary laws, but also in terms of the international law, the right to the prior pre-informed consent, the FPIC. How do we make sure, for instance, those of you who follow the story of Cloven, they will know that Cloven people have actually gone to court to demand a declaratory order that says they've got a right to consent if a mine has, and they want that, which is an amazing president. So building on that particular struggle, so that's kind of where our focus has been so far. We are in the process, of course, of partnering with the other NGOs that come in to the gender issues, and so we are going to be bringing in that. But for us, that has been the primary focus. Hence, all the students are telling you, what are we doing? How are we acting locally in order to make sure that these people, the work, the farming and everything that they do becomes ecologically sustainable when it comes to adapting to climate change and to the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have two more hands here, but then we have eaten our time a little bit, and I would like to ask every participant if we can take 5 more minutes. So if you are in agreement of that, you can just type plus plus. 5 more minutes, guys. Yeah, we have a hand from Gabriel and Michelle. So Gabriel.
I'll give Michelle the floor first.
Okay, Michelle.
So my question, I was just making sure my mic is unmuted. My question is more to Sinegugu, I think, round about how to, I don't know if mobilize is the word, but how to mobilize religious people to, you know, become part of the fight, to understand just how important it is for them to be part of the fight as well. As my dad is a religious leader, and to speak to him is quite easy because, I mean, we relate, right? But then to get to the congregants is a little bit different because just like the grounds we are on, the understanding just differs a little bit. So what I'm trying to get is maybe advice on how to approach them and help them be on the same page to say, look, climate change is a threat to all of us. So we all need to act as quickly as we possibly can without maybe making them feel as though I'm introducing them to a new God, because that's kind of what I've had to go through. So yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Gabriel, you can come in and then we'll hear response.
My question would be surrounding the it can either go to Ayaka or anyone else who's a panelist or Sinegugu. The topic of permaculture is a genius one, but in areas, yeah, for example, in Cape Town, in Hanover Park, in Mitchells Plain, there's no land for us to do certain things like that. How do we encourage and mobilize people to engage in activities like that when there's no land or there is no ground for us to, you know, actively do that other than the, you know, because it's nice to say use alternatives, but alternatives shouldn't be the alternative. So how do we, what, any ideas on what we can do to, you know, push forward in that kind of regard?
All right.
Okay, thank you very much. So the guest will respond, and I would like to ask our guest, if finish their responses, to just give us a very brief summary of everything that they have delivered here for us, the lessons. So I will start with Sinegugu, and after Sinegugu, then it will be Ayaka.
Okay, thanks, Ngondo. In terms of mobilizing religious people, if I were to respond to that, there are opportunities because I would say most, if not all, religious denominations, they do allow the young people services, but also there are kind of environmental days to celebrate. When there are opportunities, whether it is the Mother's Day or the Father's Day celebration, whenever there are those, it is important and critical that those days where the young people are given the stage and the platform, be it drama, be it poetry, that when and actually the onus is on the young people, it's on the activists to be actually to approach and say, we would like to have this particular day where we organize the congregants to come and we are celebrating this particular, maybe we are celebrating the Women's Day. And then to raise the gender-based violence issues there, be poetry, drama, and all of that. I think there are opportunities, and if they are able to talk to the leaders within the church, it should not be very difficult, but they've got to have specific days when they would be given the platform, and then the members of the congregation can sit down and listen to the young people taking a center stage there, and then they would use that particular platform to raise these issues. And then in terms of mobilizing, fortunately globally now, for instance, one of the things that globally COVID-19 has done with the lockdown globally, it has awakened everyone to start producing own food. So the people, for instance, even in America, they were reporting the shortage of seedlings because everyone. So we know that if you go on the internet, even people who are living in high-rise flats, if they've got a veranda, and even in rooftops of buildings, people could put in tires, they can produce. So the options and the opportunities, they are there. So if we check what organizations are doing in terms of meeting the food security in those areas where people do not have land, so there are options and there are tons in terms of information. I think if I were to get to what you asked us to do, Kulegani, in terms of summing up, I think what I've done is in terms of that you need to understand what your community wants and what matters most, or what are the priorities for the community, and then be able to networking with the other organizations to find information, doing the learning exchanges with the other people who are experiencing the similar challenges, finding the information, finding videos and all of that to share and to build capacity becomes very, very important. So creativity and finding, and then responding to the issues and to the matters that are there on the ground becomes very critical. So thinking globally, but acting locally as per local needs is the most critical thing, the priority that we need to carry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thinking clearly and slowly. Thank you very much. Aya?
So in my opinion, to the question that Gabe asked, in terms of here in Cape Town, we do not have land, so permaculture will be a very hard thing for us to do. That is true, but I seen Xoli Fuyani, we know Xoli from the ACA. She's been actually encouraging me in ways that you can have your own garden, maybe have using a comb, like a bath, an old bath, and just throw soil in there, and then you can grow your own vegetables for yourself and your family as a whole, or you can use old tires, so on and so forth, for you just to have something to eat and be able to balance out what you're saying, Gabriel, that we do not really have land. And in terms of a summary, I would say that my main points were, in order for us to actually connect the dots and understand that all of these injustices have a root. We have to understand that there is a root to all of these injustices. And in order for us to actually take action against the injustice, we have to understand where it's coming from. Because if we keep fighting on the surface, then we're not really doing much. We're not really doing much in terms of trying to make sure that everyone gets equal rights and equal opportunities. What I'd want to say, my takeaway from this is that standing in solidarity with other movements instead of trying to merge them, so that we make sure that each movement has time to amplify their voice, and each one has time to show their importance and just get solidarity from other movements, so that they don't really get drowned out, I guess. And the last one is, we can't really preach to people of color, people that live in poverty, about climate change, because they are really more worried about what they're going to eat tonight. They're more worried about if their kids are safe. They're more worried about, is my husband gonna come home and beat me tonight? So I feel like it's very important that we still teach education, but in order for us to actually solve climate change or make climate change go away, we have to actually give light to other socioeconomic issues. And by giving light to other socioeconomic issues, these people finally give us also solidarity back in our movement, and then we'll be able to fight as a bigger narrative, I guess. Yeah, so that's basically my takeaway from what's happening here today.
Thank you very much, and thank you to both our guests. Firstly, we'll take more from time, then my co-facilitator Sarah to do the wrap up and closing. And thank you so much for everyone for your patience, Sarah.
Yeah, just a very big thank you to the speakers. I think everyone agrees that it was incredibly informative. And thank you, Kulekani, for co-facilitating with me. Maybe just to end off, to put something in the chat as to something that was you took from this as being a new learning, or something that you found particularly inspirational. Just as you say goodbye, put that in the chat so that we can all see and kind of internalize all these awesome things that we've learned today. But thank you, everybody. The Sinagugu's presentation will also be shared with the group, so you do have access to that as well. And yeah, we'll be seeing you next Wednesday for the following session. So keep coming and keep bringing the energy, because yeah, together we're going to unite and we're going to make some awesome change, right? Cool. Yep. I don't see anything in the chat, so let's bring that. There we go. Lakani, sorry.
Thanks so much, guys.
Awesome. So see, Michelle says the use of Indigenous knowledge in the program run really inspired me. Alex, solidarity is key. Attack the root of the issues in the communities and push for change. Absolutely. So thank you so much, everybody. Oh, one more. One needs to be very strategic in what and how they act. Awesome. Absolutely. Cool. Thanks so much, everyone. And yeah, see you next Wednesday. I'll continue reading out
so much,
everyone's comments.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks, brother Alex.